Good evening, and it's time now for another edition of Things You Should Know with my co-host, Mr. Kenneth Nixon, a man with a wealth of knowledge. And remember, if you have any questions, feel free to ask Mr. Nixon. You can send us a text at 825-0983, or you can drop a comment on our Facebook feed at The Blaze 98.3 FM Exuma. But once again, it's time for another edition of Things You Should Know. And today we are on commonage. What is required of a commoner? Good evening to you, Mr. Nixon.
Good evening to you, Gigi. Good evening, Exuma. All within the sound of my voice. And I have some very interesting information or direction for those who are of commonage descent. And commonage, first I must let you know what is commonage. Commonage is land and Exuma are lands that was escheated, that was formally granted to Dennis Roll, the father of John Lord Roll. And those lands was escheated in 1895, July. They went to Parliament and they made laws called the Commonage Act, which was enacted in 1896, 30th of April. If you look at the top of the Commonage Act, and it says commence 30th of April, 1896. So commonage is not only in the Bahamas. Commonage in all British colony, including Taiwan, Australia, New Zealand, Nairobi, all of the British colonies has commonages. In other words, the Queen, they took back the grant that they gave to the loyalists. And so because it was occupied by former slaves or former people, you couldn't put them, there was no other place to put them. So now you give the land, you give the use of the land. Let me read for you. You're not the owner of any land. It says the Queen still in possession of those lands to act and provide for more beneficial use of land held in common. That's what the act says. And it includes land held in common, which are granted to more than 20 people. In other words, they gave more than 20 people to use it. So it's called common use.
Right.
You only got the common use, but you did not get no ownership. And that's the only privilege you have. Says right here, for the beneficial use. And then if you go in 6, it says, you must make rules for the fair use of the land, not the fair share. You don't get no share. You get the fair use of the land. Section 11, for securing fair use of such land by the commoners among themselves, has nothing to do with no ownership.
Right.
And you cannot tell anyone. The only thing a commoner has once here is the use of. Government still controls those lands. It is a statutory body, and it's Chapter 152, Commonage Act, Statute Law of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. It is the same. It should be run the same way as the Port Authority Board, the Wholesale Licensing Board, the Town Planning Board. It's the same act and the same format of running the same area. So those who in there, laws are written. So the reason why I touch this, I've been having tons of call pertaining to some posts by someone who is spewing out illegal garbage of commonage, how you entitled. So I'm on this radio right now to tell the commoners or these entitled person, forget what you're hearing. If that person cannot show you anything in writing, forget what they are saying. And I'm going to bring what is written. Laws are written. I always says, what is written is law. What is not written is not law.
It's hearsay.
So whatever that person saying is not law. The entitled commoner I will bring to you, because yours truly had been to court more than 4 times for the very same. Those who were was removed from the registry and those who wanted to go on the registry. And the latest one was the Ramsey case of taking the administrator to court for not placing someone who says they was entitled to be there, but was not entitled to be on there. So those are all precedents in the court.
Yeah.
So this person who's spewing what is entitled and what do, the thing it is, that person is not entitled to put nobody on the registry. And I'm going to give it to you to read section 6 so we can go through section 6 of that entitlement, or what is needed by any person who wish to be registered as a commoner. Please read section 6.
Section 6(1), where any person applies to the commissioner to be registered as a commoner, the commissioner shall consider the application and may take evidence thereon. Any commoner may oppose any such application. If the commissioner is satisfied that the applicant has the right to be registered as a commoner in such lands, he shall cause the name of the applicant to be registered as such, and if not so satisfied, he shall reject such application.
When a person applies to the commissioner to be registered as a commoner, the commissioner shall consider the application. The commissioner, not the person who's spewing nonsense. Because it's the commissioner going to be dragged to court. We're going to get into that. The commissioner shall do that. Now, the commissioner, in this instance, gave these persons these books. Not one person went to a workshop. Not one person knows where they got to go. Not one person knows what those evidence are that they should obtain. And the evidence should be accompanying those applications. I do it in Steventon. I have all of those. Those evidence that the commissioner should take must be stapled or attached to that. You're dealing with government land. That ain't yours. So the commissioner shall take evidence. Now here's the part. He also spewing that somebody interfering in their commonage. Read right under that what it says.
Any commoner may oppose any such application.
The commonage is overseen by every person who is registered as a commoner. Whether you from Steventon, Ramsey, or you are the person that monitors and say, look, Kennedy ain't entitled to be in Steventon. He won't register in Rollville. He ain't business in Steventon. You understand?
Right.
Any commoner, you didn't say from any place. Read that again.
Any commoner may oppose any such application.
Any commoner. This standard law for all commonages. I said, whether you from Nairobi to Australia, any commoner may oppose. I've been to court. They took me to court on 43 points, and I gave that same information. And the guys who took me to court said I was wrong. The Chief Justice said Mr. Nixon is within his rights. He is. And they did mention in that Mr. Nixon, Kenneth Nixon, a non-commoner of Mount Thompson. I say, commoner? He's a commoner from someplace. He is a commoner.
So it's
any commoner.
It's no specified
Now
location.
I know that I got evidence that you ain't entitled to be there. I have evidence. That's why they say take evidence, not a story. If I could come up and show you your birth certificate and all your parentage and where they reside, you ain't business in Steventon. You should go to Rollville. And that's what that law says. Any commoner. I'm registered as a commoner.
May oppose.
May oppose any such
application.
It didn't say, it did not specific, Any. So the spewing, we're talking about someone interfering with their commonage. Don't cut that. See, void of knowledge. I would advise him to take that off his sight. I'm a person as justice and peace which says I shall uphold the laws of Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, without fear and without favor. I took that out on the Bible. I will enforce the law on any and everybody. Because when you start doing illegal stuff, it spreads. And so if you put somebody's name on something to receive something, you are doing that person an injustice. And if they want to know the case in there, Gina Molly died, but the person built in Roxanne, not entitled. A commoner took over the house because they had to sell to a commoner. They will not take it, but the court direct that the building be sold because you are not entitled to be in that commonage. So all you invested in there, you to get,
It
you,
no
you're
longer
not a
belongs
you
to
should
you.
have no interest in land. And there's so many things being done that I've got to address that today. You're not entitled. The law says who's entitled. And the only entitled commoner is the person. Would you go back to section 3? Section 3.
Yes. And I'm reading from the Statute Law of the Bahamas, revised edition of 2000, Commonage, Chapter 152. And this is Section 3. A register of commoners shall be formed and kept in each town or settlement in which land is held in common. Such register shall be formed in the first instance by the commissioner in accordance with such rules as may be made and issued to him on the subject by the minister, which rules the minister is hereby empowered to make and issue. Every person residing at the settlement adjacent to the lands held in common who is an actual occupant of any portion of the land so held in common at the time when this act comes into operation shall be entitled to be registered as a commoner in such land.
Just basically, it says here's the entitlement. All the others are the setting up of the registry. And the setting up of the registry ought to be in the first instance by the commissioner. So any first entry into that book must be by the commissioner.
Right.
All first entry. So anyone who come in to be the first entitled commoner, these persons ain't supposed to be in that book because the signature, the registered signature with the department should be that of the commissioner at that time. Whoever is the administrator, their signature should appear in the registry, putting that initial person in the first instance means the first person, the first entitled commoner. That's what the law said. Why these people in these book writing, I don't know. But they are doing an illegal action. And the administrator is allowing them to do this. But we got to read, because the administrator is not above the law. In that book right there will say that, go down to section 6 on that.
Section 6.2. Any person aggrieved by the decision of the commissioner shall have the right to appeal to a stipendiary and circuit magistrate.
So you see, you can drag whoever administrator is to court. I've done it, been done. Mr. Campbell, he been before the courts. So if she failed to do what she's supposed to do, take her to court, take her or him. Whoever is that administrative commissioner,
You have
take
the right.
that right. See, it says we have the right to drag them to court because they failed to do their duty within this act. This is a serious act. Commonage is land. Land that's caused people all kind of fight. And that's the Queen's land. If he or she failed to do what it is, take them to court.
Okay.
And they got to stand up in court and listen. They know that they pay damages and costs. So you get a lawyer. So they have to pay. Once you show that they didn't do their job, they got to pay costs and damages. We went all the way to Supreme Court, and the loser pays damages and costs. I have it in my possession. I gave the file to the sitting administrator. She has that file showing they took Mr. Ferguson to court.
Yeah.
So you have to stand there and you're going to pay the consequence. Messing with commonage, any commoner, you see that? That's
Any
the
registered
law.
commoner has
Any
the right.
registered commoner can oppose any such application. Anyone who aggrieved by the inactive or active of the administrator or the commissioner shall take them to the magistrate and can go as far as the Supreme Court and take them, then they're inactive because they conspired to give these lands to someone who were not entitled to be there.
Correct.
So being right on a piece of paper don't make you register. Evidence of your entitlement has to be proven.
So persons looking to be registered have to make sure that their lineage is correct for each settlement.
You got the evidence. You must have the evidence. The entitled commoner was in actual occupation at the time. Let me just state to you, and I want you to look at the different commonages. You can look and see when the different commonages start operating as commonage. See, this is what can get you in trouble, the evidence. I want you to start from the first page and look at each one of those commonages. These are government documents. When did Tarpon Bay become a commonage?
Tarpon Bay, commencement 1st of May, 1926.
Go to the next commonage. And these are statutory laws.
Rock Sound commenced the 1st of November, 1938. Mount Thompson and Ramsey Commoners commenced the 29th of July, 1961. The Savannah Sound Eleuthera Commonage, December 15, 2004.
These are Spanish Wells and Harbor Island. All of these are commonages, and they commence at a date.
Yes.
So we in Exuma were operating these commonages as what? Lord Roll Estate, before it commenced operating as commonages. So they have to get this time right. And they ought to research to see when it started, those commonages, when it started operating as commonages, because they were operating as something else before commonages. And so coming up here and putting people in a buck, you better have the evidence, because Kenneth Nixon is any registered commoner. I have the right to say to the administrator, look, this person is not entitled. Here is the evidence that they are not entitled to become a commoner of Steventon. And he or she must act on that lawful information. Remove those names from the registry. And then once the name is removed, Section 15 says, any person occupying any lands held in common who is not registered common shall be deemed a willful trespasser and may on the application of any commoner be ejected by order of the commission. Be ejected. Didn't say evicted, you know. See, ejected means to be physically thrown out. When a shell ejected from something, or you get ejected from something, you get thrown out physically. Not evicted. Evicted asks you to move. Ejected means you get thrown out. And it says that any person afterwards enters upon the land from which he has been ejected shall be deemed to have committed an offense punishable summarily, and on conviction shall be liable to imprisonment with hard labor for 3 months. This Commonage Act. So if these people want to do you a favor, should not get you into criminal action. You are in position, and remember now, you're not always going to be that person in that position. You're going to get voted out, and there's some people coming in, going to throw your people out who you put in there. They have the right to do that. So you are putting these people who you think you helping in trouble, because they will be ejected, leaving all of their dreams what they put together on this piece of illegal occupation. Now we're going to go to another part. What is also makes it in a whole lot of places illegal. There is an act called, could you read that at the top of it?
International Persons Land Holding.
Yes, there's an act that you, if you are non-Bahamian, especially in commonage, if you are non-Bahamian, non-Bahamian, and you can read this. You will read this because they say, can it say so? Now read what the act says.
Section 3. 1. A non-Bahamian other than a permanent resident or non-Bahamian acquiring land or an interest in land under the advice or by inheritance, who intends to acquire land or an interest in land either by way of freehold or leasehold, and which acquisition is not within section 2:1. Shall obtain a permit for the board to make the acquisition by making the requisite application and paying the appropriate fee specified in the schedule to the secretary of the board. Otherwise, an acquisition shall be null and void and be without effect for all purpose of law in the absence of such permit.
If you are non-Bahamian, you need an approval through the investment authority, which is the cabinet, to inherit land. I'm going to read it for you. Whether you acquire land or an interest in land or devise, being by or by inheritance, you will need this permit. In the absence of this permit, your acquisition is null and void. Whatever you got is null and void. You are non-Bahamian. So if you come into the commonage and they give you land and you did not have no permit to acquire this land, it's an illegal and an offense. As the Privy Council says, anyone who receiving lands with intent to defraud is a criminal offense. And that's what that is, with intent to defraud the government of lands. And then they go to immigration. They go to say, and they're looking for status based on this land. Yeah, they're doing that. You are a foreign person. You cannot acquire land unless you got approval. And the Act says in Section 11, I'm going to show you where it says there are some people. The reason why that there's some prohibitive. Section 11. I have to bring this because it's happening on Exuma. And then there are persons spewing that these people are registered. Huh? Who registered them? Couldn't have been the administrator knowing they're non-Bahamian. They're non-Bahamian. Read Section 11, where it says that they have to do that because they are Satan prohibitive type.
Section 11. A non-Bahamian who owns a home in the Bahamas shall be entitled to make application to the Director of Immigration for an annual homeowner residence card, and the director shall, notwithstanding anything to the contrary in the Immigration Act, upon being satisfied of that ownership and that such person is not a member of a prohibitive class of persons within the meaning of the Immigration Act, or is not otherwise undesirable and is able to maintain himself and his dependent in the Bahamas, issue the card to the applicant upon payment by him of the specified fee in the schedule, entitling him, his spouse, and minor children, if any, to a card unless any of them is otherwise prohibited under the provisions of the Act from entering into the Bahamas.
There you go. You see, these go through this because there are type of lands that are prohibitive. You didn't own no land. The land has no ownership. So it prohibited you from receiving a card. You have to acquire the land
First.
If the land has no ownership, you don't own it, then you didn't acquire nothing to get a card. That's the prohibitive part of this Foreign Person Landholding Act. Because you didn't purchase nothing, you didn't own nothing, but you want benefit for nothing. So you are prohibitive of reholding this card. Mind you, you might have invested, illegally invested. Here's another part of that prohibitive part. The town planning should not issue a building permit to anyone who is a non-citizen of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas unless they have had the permit from the same people to do so. And these persons have received none. So they are all, 6 portion of the law has been violated by this same nonsense being spewed by these same people who think they're above the law. Nobody is above the law. They are doing things above the law. Another thing, commoners or persons are of the belief that they can register as a descendant in two commonages. Prohibited. You can only register in the commonage, the same thing as the Bahamas allowed, single citizenship. You cannot have dual there. And the Act states exactly is person who residing, every person residing in the settlement and the land held in common adjacent to the settlement. So you didn't reside in two commonage, held in land adjacent to the settlement. Says right there. Every person residing in the settlement adjacent to the land held in common shall be entitled. So which one you reside in adjacent to? So coming but you entitled because your grandpa, that didn't make you the entitlement.
Yeah.
The entitlement is where that one person is entitled. You reside in Steventon. I tell all my kids, I got someone enrolled with, I said, you got to stay where you had reside, lived, went to school. That's where your entitlement is. Your descendant from those ancestors. But you cannot come and, you didn't reside with me. So you cannot be entitled under me.
Right.
Because I reside in Steventon. You didn't do that. And so that makes the entitlement right there. And so that evidence, that is evidence to take to the commissioner. This person did not at no time be here, so they're not entitled to be here. Those are evidence. I want you to read section 6 again before I go. Read section 6. So those people who hear the nonsense that being spewed on social media by these people, let them know that you need the evidence. Read what ought to be done.
Section 6, once again, where any person applies to the commissioner to be registered as a commoner, the commissioner shall consider the application and may take evidence thereon. Any commoner may oppose any such application. If the commissioner is satisfied that the applicant has the right to be registered as a commoner in such lands, he shall cause the name of the applicant to be registered as such, and if not so satisfied, he shall reject such application. 2. Any person aggrieved by the decision of the commissioner shall have the right to appeal to the stipendiary and circuit magistrate.
There you go. So all of the nonsense you hear on social media by certain person, if they cannot show you in writing and cannot produce evidence for you, please hold your money. Because any commoner, and Kenneth Nixon happened to be one of them, any registered commoner, any commoner can produce evidence that you are not entitled. Any commoner could produce that.
There you have it. If you have any questions, feel free to send us a text or voice note at 825-0983. This has been another edition of Things You Should Know with Mr. Kenneth Nixon.